Suking Prose Perm. I have been in Shanghai for almost 5 years and have never had my hair permed. The reason why I didn't perm my hair in the first place is very simple. I grew up in the mainland and had never seen anything like electric perm or water perm. I was afraid that it would be scary to perm my hair, so I didn't dare to try it. But I don't want to show weakness in front of others and make people laugh at me. I don't want my hair to be burned or electrocuted. I often tell people proudly why I don't perm my hair. People seem to think that this matter was valuable and enough to show their dignity. So they spread the word from one person to another. Qing never perms her hair. This is just like a certain important person. I have never taken concubines in my life, so my policy of not perming my hair has become a good talk among my relatives and friends. Aunt Lynn often uses me as an example to teach her daughter. Why did you get a perm again? How ugly that disheveled hair is. Look how clean and generous it is when it is neatly swept back like Cousin King's. Very. Ms. Liu, who graduated from an art college, often praises me in front of others. King Shen is a person who understands the beauty of nature. He refuses to follow the trend and curl her hair up in a tacky style. She lets her hair fall softly on her shoulders, looking simple and elegant. After I received many unexpected accolades, I really felt that I was a little bit special, and I was afraid that I would not be able to despise other people's hair perms. Although they were unhappy at being despised by me, they had to admire my ability to do good on my own. Women are the best at following others' example. In today's world where headless hair is not like a plane, if you want to find a straight lock of black hair, you will have to go through iron shoes without finding it. Therefore, I am even more proud of myself for being knowledgeable, courageous, daring, outstanding and different from the ordinary. That soft, straight lock hanging on my shoulders makes me so proud. My eyebrows raised, as if everyone was a poor guy who wouldn't dare not perm his hair when he saw someone else perming it. But I was the hero who could say it and do it. What woman doesn't admire my greatness? Besides, it is very in line with natural beauty, clean, generous, simple, elegant. I have it all. Enough is enough. But can the clothes on my body match my hair and make the whole look harmonious and well-proportioned? I am quite worried. Maybe the clothes I made in the past were too bright in color and did not conform to the principles of cleanliness, generosity, simplicity, and elegance. I couldn't let my greatness be flawed, so I invited Aunt Lynn and Miss Liu to help me pick out a few more pieces. The color should be generous. The texture should be high quality, and the lining strips should not be careless. After cutting it, they accompanied me home. They shook the material piece by piece and gave it to Xian, my husband, to criticize which piece was the most beautiful and which piece was the cheapest. Everyone hopes that they have the best eyesight and the best choice. Xian had little interest in this and did not want to offend anyone, so he had to praise each piece and deliberately guess the price higher. Our picking skills are pretty good. Aunt Lynn, Miss Liu, both smiled proudly, and Xian also turned around and smiled at me. That was a bitter smile, and I felt confused. Do I really want to sacrifice myself to the end for these unexpected honors? A waste of her husband's money and at the same time contrary to her own wishes. I don't really have a perm. I remember that when I was 15 or 16 years old, I wore a red shirt with a white reverse collar and the black skirt every day, and rode a bicycle to school. My hair was permed with a steel needle used to knit gloves to make it fluffy, and it was blown by the wind. The attire was loosely draped all over the head and face, even covering the eyes. When turning, you had to turn your head to the left to reveal half of your face and one eye. This kind of attire was very popular at the time. I once took a photo like this and everyone said it was beautiful. 24 copies were printed and all were given away. I only kept one to post in the photo album. I still feel very happy and proud now. However, people have already promoted it for me. Green hair is never permed, so I had to tear it off quickly and stuff it in the bottom of the box, so that this historical relic that was once considered honorable but now disgraceful will be hidden there forever. Others may no longer know that I used to have loose hair, and I don't want to think about it anymore, although I can't help but feel happy and proud when I think about it occasionally. But I had to restrain myself and try to regard this feeling as a sin. I had to remember at every turn that I was already an outstanding and unusual person, and I must refrain from loving modernity, the standards of right and wrong, good and evil, beauty and ugliness must all be determined separately, and the more novel the better. Even the smallest details cannot be ignored. Although it is a bit more troublesome, how can it be considered sophisticated? Even if unfortunately you occasionally have some opinions that are no different from those of the common people, you should quickly make some efforts to restrain yourself and keep yourself as far away from them as possible. Otherwise, how can you come out and be different? This is what Gu Hongming meant when he cut his hair in the Qing dynasty but grew it into braids in the Republic of China. There are many such things among the ancients: eating dog feces, swallowing scabs, spitting and drying one's face, drinking too much old wine, being an official rather than catching lice, etc. There are too many to list. If you just refuse to perm your hair, you are like a little witch. Moreover, I had already practiced this method in middle school. The teacher in the composition class taught us that we must have unique opinions, so Qin Hui, Yan Song and others had to be hardline to act as capable and loyal ministers. As a result, the close circle of praise also came. Others became jealous and imitated them one after another. They defeated Kong Lauer and eliminated the square characters. They kept saying things that were not novel. Later, even my husband felt that it was too novel and not surprising. So I decided he immediately followed the wind and turned the rudder, still calling Qin Hui and Song a thief and traitor, and ended up with another thing that is rare and valuable. Now that I am famous for not perming my hair, it is the success of this policy of turning the old into the new. Unexpectedly, today, 5 years later, I suddenly feel the sadness of victory again. This may be the reason why praise is not valuable. I really regret that I should not have lost the opportunity for my soft hair to become wavy and beautiful because of this insignificant reputation. At the same time, I also regret that for reasons, such as harmony and symmetry, I stopped wearing brightly colored clothes for 5 years. As I get older every year, my desire to wear bright clothes increases day by day. The impression of the red dress and permed hair is clear and clear in my memory. The memory is happy and proud. Now that Hong Yi has said goodbye to me, why don't I have a few more farewell reunions with Perm, who is willing to consider my wishes, like Uncle Ying Kao admonishing Duke Zheng Zhuang, so that the curling iron and I can have a chance to meet again. How can I hold back my heartbeat to feel the joy of being tortured by fire and electrocution? Really, why should I endure it without getting burned and go against my own wishes? A widow who has observed the 5-year fast can wait for the completion of the memorial arch, and a Buddhist woman who has fasted for 5 years can wait for the merits of the long fast to be completed. But for me, not perming my hair in my 20s is outstanding and different. Ordinary people, if you don't perm your hair when you are 30 or 40 years old, you are ordinary and cannot stand out. Why don't I catch up now and perm it first? Which can be regarded as the first step to stand out after the age of 30 or 40. I'm going to start looking for a driver advisor. The first one I picked was Yan. It should be easy for him to understand my painstaking efforts, right? But he usually doesn't want to meddle in other people's business. So I had to try to get him to talk. So I took out the photo of the ghost in red shirt and black skirt from the bottom of the box and ran into his study. He is reading the newspaper. Guess what I'm holding in my hand? I deliberately put the hand holding the photo behind me, pretending to be childish, and asking him to guess. What? He asked casually, obviously not interested. This disappoints me, but after a while, Hope plucked up the courage, flashed the photo in front of his eyes and said, "Who do you think it is? Who is it?" He seemed embarrassed not to put down the newspaper anymore. He picked up the photo and looked at it for a while. I can't guess. Is it because the hair in the photo covers his face, making it difficult for him to see clearly? Or maybe I'm so much older that he can't find the slightest resemblance in the photos. My heart suddenly became heavy, and I reluctantly said, "This is a photo taken when I was 15. Look, I look like a disheveled guy." I raised my eyes and looked at him, hoping that he might praise me for how nice my perm was, but he had no expression. So I had to ask again, "Isn't it ugly if I perm my hair?" No, he put down the photo and picked up the newspaper. "But I think it suits you better now." Does this suit me better now? Doesn't it look good after you perm your hair? Is this because I'm too old? Or is it because I'm too ugly? He, who I thought was the first person to easily understand my painstaking efforts, stabbed my heart with such words. I bit my lip and kept silent for a long time before I burst out with one sentence. Others won't look as ugly as me if they get permed. Xian raised his head in astonishment, suddenly realized what I meant, and said with a playful smile, I never pay attention to others. It has nothing to do with me whether they look ugly or not if they perm. I walked downstairs angrily and walked into the kitchen. Wang Ma's niece didn't go to work today and was sitting there chatting. When she saw me, she stood up, her hair slicked down in an airplane style. This gave me hope again. Maybe she could make me get my wish. Please sit down. My voice was kind. You are more beautiful now. Don't you have a new perm? Wang Ma glanced at her with a smile. The little girls always don't know how hard it is. How hard it is to get some clothes to wear with a few hard-earned money. And why are they fussing about perming their hair? In fact, it doesn't look good if it's wrinkled and permed like this. Look, it looks like a young lady's hair. Straight, soft, and I was angry not to listen anymore and turned back to my mother's room. Mother is peeling peanuts. That was prepared for Wai Wei to eat when she came back from school. I was too lazy to help her, so I just sat aside and chatted with her casually. I often bring the topic of conversation back to my childhood dressing, hoping that she will remember the shape of my red shirt and black skirt with my fluffy hair, so I can say, I saw how beautiful you looked with your permed hair back then. So, I can use these words as a shield, as if I have found a treasure. And I will go to the barber shop tomorrow to receive electrocution immediately. When people ask me, they will say that my mother likes my hair perm. How can I not learn from Lao Lazy? I can only regret that my mother didn't understand me, a daughter who wanted to be an old man. After I quoted her again and again, she finally spoke her mind, as if she had some enlightenment. I was like a prisoner listening to the final sentence. Younger, your hair is natural, soft and thin. As the saying goes, a noble person has no heavy hair on his head. It's a pity that when you were in your teens, you often listened to your classmates and used steel needles to perm them, and the strands were burned off. When I looked at it, my heart ached so hard when I heard this. I knew something was wrong, so I hurriedly tried to save the situation and said, But, Mom, hair is permed well in Shanghai. Almost everyone has it. The mother waved her hands repeatedly and said, You must not imitate other people's bad example, Kanger. You are a daughter of a good family, and the most important thing is to be clean and generous. Now Wai Wei is 6 years old. You are not young at all. Just follow the fashion. You only have 3 to 5 years left. So don't mess up your good hair and make people laugh. My mother actually said such unpleasant words. I thought sadly about building a memorial arch and eating a long fast. Wai Wei came in with her school bag, and Grandma hurriedly handed her peanuts. She threw 3 or 4 pills in her mouth and chewed them for a while, then suddenly grabbed her grandma's shoulder and begged, I'm going to have my hair permed tomorrow. All the kids have it. Tie a bow on the fluffy top. How fun! I want a bright red one. Grandma also stroked her neck and smiled and said, It's really fun to perm the baby, but there are no steel needles here. What can you ask Grandma to use to perm your baby? Steel pliers. Ask Mom to buy a pair of steel pliers. All the children have bright steel pliers at home. Wai Wei said and shook her head, revealing half of her face and one eye and looking at me with a smile. I suddenly darkened my face. You are very familiar with this kind of common sense, but I don't allow you to perm your hair. Don't you know that the most important thing for a female student is to be clean, generous, simple, and elegant? If you don't believe me, ask your husband. Look, but Wai Wei didn't understand the meaning of these 8 words at all, so she shook her head and answered me stubbornly, But the gentlemen are also permed and wrinkled. Don't you want to stand out and be different from the ordinary? I became a little proud again, despising Wai Wei for being so inferior to myself. But Wai Wei didn't admire her mother's greatness and awesomeness, and instead cried coquettishly. Xian threw the newspaper and ran downstairs. After asking her what had happened, she comforted her and said, I begged my mother to buy a pair of steel pliers tomorrow. Wai Wei's hair is permed on her little head to match. Wai Wei has permed her hair to match. They are all here to make me angry. I couldn't help but roared out. I never paid attention to whether she matched or not. You can buy it for her if you like it. I taught her to be simple and don't look bad at others. You all come against me. I will do it for her from now on. I don't dare to teach my daughter anymore, and I don't have the shame to stay here and be hated by others. Weiwei, if you get a perm, you won't have to call me mom tomorrow. Weiwei was so frightened that she didn't dare to cry anymore. She pouted her mouth and counted the peanuts. I didn't sleep well all night. And of course I couldn't eat dinner. When I got up the next day, Weiwei had already gone to school. According to her mother, she was still pouting and dejected when she went out. My mind was filled with thoughts of building a memorial arch, eating a long fast, and so on. After breakfast, I felt really troubled and uncomfortable, so I changed my clothes and ran out alone. I strolled to the gate of Weiwei's school, peeked in from the iron gate. Every little girl had her hair permed and put on bows, including flowers, green and purple. I love bright colors, especially bright red. A girl has an oval and chubby little face like Weiwei, with a bright red bow, and she looks like a perfect match. But why didn't I see my Weiwei? She might be sitting alone in the classroom and getting angry. I took a big bag with me when I went home. Xian put down the newspaper and asked me what it was with great interest. I told him it was Weiwei's clothing material. He unwrapped the paper piece by piece and shook it out to look at it. Suddenly he took out a long and heavy package and asked, "Then what is this?" "Steel pliers, for perming Weiwei's hair," I replied in a low voice, feeling happy and aggrieved at the same time. He smiled, tore off the wrapping paper and took it out to examine it carefully. He also pinched his hair to see if it was too tight or too wide, and finally took it to his mother's room. "I'll go with him." My mother was about to peel the peanuts when she saw this and asked what it was for. We rushed to explain it, and Xian tried to clamp it again on her gray hair. Looking at the bright steel pliers, she couldn't help but sigh and said, "People nowadays are so clever. People like Qing are only use steel needles to do ironing. How could they have pliers as good as this?" We all praised this thing in our hearts. It shined brightly in our 6 eyes and in our 3 hearts. We looked at it and the clock in unison, wondering when Weiwei would be back. I wiped the pliers, Xian looked for fire wine and a match, and my mother quickly peeled the peanuts. We all hope that she can be happy and proud, go to school with her hair permed, and sneak a big bag of peanuts in her bag.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.